Welcome to the Iron Table, where iron sharpens iron, so should men sharpen men. I am your host, Bryant Gadine, and I'm joined by my brothers Keith, Danny, and Steve. We're your waiters, serving you accountability and truth. We now bring you to our program, already in progress. So, welcome to the Iron Table, where iron sharpens iron, so should men sharpen men. As you heard, we're Bryant, Danny, Steve, and Keith. I'm just bringing you truth in a different way. Hopefully, you learned something. If you don't tell us because it will make us feel bad. We are very sensitive men. We are willing to go out into the desert in order to tell our women that we love them. Just like the 1990s group started with Jodeci. Um, as always, we do not own any rights of any music that we use, but we like to honor those. So we use their music, and hopefully they say it's okay. It's okay. If not, then we'll have to pay somebody. Hopefully we won't, because we're a grassroots organization. We ain't got no money, but we got a lot of funny. So, fellas, what's been going on? It's been a while. This is episode number 50 for those. It's for those who've been rocking with us. 50. No need to run. But this is episode number 50, and it started with. I remember the first time it started with Keith and I. I think our first recording was at Keith's. Sitting around that round table we used to have with the. And I remember with the what was it, not exhaust fan, but the AC unit, and then we could hear the, the people below us um
Oh yeah.
in their language, Spanish speaking language. So that
Oh
was,
yeah, I forgot about that.
yeah. And we had small equipment. I mean, I used to carry a big bag, and we used to lug it everywhere, but we never took it on the road. That is interesting. I bought equipment to go on the road, and we never took it on the road. So
It's not too late.
it is not. We're gonna have to have a, a men's trip. Maybe we come out to Steveopolis, where
Hmm.
there's
Steve.
uh,
Compound.
Yeah, the
yeah,
compound.
where's a compound. No women, no children. Just men. Uh, but fella, what's been going on? It has been a while. Thank you for waking up this early in the morning, and if you see any bags underneath our eyes, because I mean, I didn't go to bed till 3, so.
Ooh.
uh, Yeah. So took a shower, try to wake up my face, but if not, if it starts drooping, that's old age. Old age just setting in. So what's been going on? What's been going on before we get into today's message? Let's do a little roundup.
Life, real life. A thing we've been denied for far too long. Yeah, it's been good.
Hmm.
We've
Okay.
just been doing the thing focused on entrepreneurship has been my road, and always ups and downs, hills and valleys, and everything that's not working for you is working on you. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm in the middle of right now.
Is it
All
kicking your
right.
butt some days?
Oh, it gets the Timberlands and starts stomping your boy in the mouth.
Right. I know that's right. That's how somebody told me that's how you know you're doing it right.
That's
Some
it. That's it right there.
some
But
days is
that
wearing
it's
you
a
out.
part of the process, a part of the journey. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And
True.
Mm.
yeah, we're here.
True.
Iron Table is all about making sure that we have iron and sharpening iron because we can get better. Everything except Almighty God can improve. So I'm like, yo, let's get.
Mm.
All right. Deacons, any one of y'all?
Deacons.
Yeah, y'all deacons.
Okay. I gotta everything's been smooth. Everything's been cool, man. A lot of times, what I've been finding out, even for working with my clients, you learn a lot about yourself too, and even things that you uh, need to improve on too. We're always a work in progress, regardless if you're the person receiving the help or giving advice. You definitely understand that everybody is always working to improve. But I do got a something happened this weekend that I definitely want to talk to you guys about, or ask in a sense ask you guys a question or whatnot. But we'll get to
All right.
Okay, what's up? All right. Well, we'll wait for that question then.
that.
Yeah, that might be the question of the morning.
Same old, same
Oh,
old.
we can start.
Yeah, same old. Just dodging, just running this race, trying to endure until the end. That's it.
When is the end?
Well, God says so. Well, right now,
Hey, there you go. There you
right
go.
now, just getting up one day at a time, one foot in front of the other, trying not to kill nobody,
Oh, that part.
just,
Mm,
or myself. Just
mm,
you know, just
mm,
again, the reason why we do is to connect with others and hopefully compel them to see that it can get better.
mhm.
So that's been me. Well, so, but today I get to take a break and go do some self care.
What is your self care today?
I ain't telling you.
Okay, fine.
No,
I won't tell you what my self care is.
no, I'm joking. It-
That's how that is.
well, for me right now, it's catching up on some stuff, probably some music, honestly.
Mm,
Creativity. That's your self care.
It is.
mm.
Okay. All right, Steve. Since you said you had a question, I'll save mine for another time. Come on and bring
Oh
it,
no,
Mister.
We do it
it's not gonna last forever. So we can definitely get to all those questions. But so um, very simple question. Just and know us all being in relationships or even think about past relationships. Me and my girl were talking, just having a conversation of what not everything was going good. Um, she's getting into it, X, Y, and Z. And within the conversation, she was like, la, 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 I said something. I was like, oh yeah, and then she was like, girl, and then she stopped herself. And then she stopped herself. She was like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
You got an
And I
apology?
said, no, ain't nothing to be, ain't nothing to be. We apologizing for or whatnot. We just went back to the normal conversation, but it had me thinking whatnot, and even just a question for you guys: how not only just in we're talking about conversation, well, mainly conversation. How comfortable do you feel like your in your relationships, your women have been with you? Because for a woman to even say something like that, to feel comfortable enough to even say girl to somebody that we're potentially getting married, it's it's funny, but then it also has some insight to how comfortable you are with me in conversating with me and how you feel about just me in general as a friend. So it made me think about that. I want to get your opinions on just that particular type of that subject, because I know I'm not the only person that has happened to, or maybe I am. And but when it comes to being comfortable with your woman being comfortable with you, because and I ask this in twofold, because there's a narrative for black women to be very strong and independent and not really at a certain point in time even share their feelings sometimes too. That's because the narrative is kind of changing for men and women. Um,
Mhm.
to be at a place where you're vulnerable enough to just be that comfortable with your man. What are your thoughts on that particular scenario, as well as even your own experiences?
I guess I would start by saying like it might be a compliment if a woman's talking to you and is like, girl, because that lets you know that emotionally she is feeling safe, she is feeling comfortable, she is feeling as though there's a vibrant connection there that not all men are able to master developing, because I don't want to I'm glad that she knows that you actually care or feels like that, even
Mhm.
if the context of your conversation is inconsequential to
Right,
you.
right,
You
right.
make her feel as though it matters. And I think that
Hmm.
that is something that's important. So she's going to feel like you are connected enough to just accidentally call you girl. So I think it's a good thing. It can be a good thing as long as everything else is in place.
Yeah.
It has to be. I mean, she said, "I'm sorry," instantly. That's because Steve's a man's
Yeah.
man. He's like, "Wait a minute. Did you raise an eyebrow? Did it was there an awkward pause? You just
No, no. It just I know even just for her holding her realizing that she let it slip because she's a person that's just kind of always in control of whatnot. She let it slip, but just I let her know, like, no, you okay? You just, it's cool. It's okay. It's okay.
did you follow up with
Now,
boy?"
but now we can't have this be an everyday occurrence. But again, it just again in our relationships, just looking back in our relationship, looking at our relationships that we're in now, how comfortable do you guys feel like your mate, your spouse, your significant others are with you? When it comes to that level of um, vulnerability of even sharing your emotions and sharing your thoughts, your feelings, and your desires and all that stuff.
I mean, we've been together for was it 14 years, 12 of which
Mm,
were married, and so
mhm.
it took a while. I mean, it, but I say that we are definitely close. If she said "girl," it probably wouldn't even phase me because we talk in the morning, we talk throughout the day, and even at night. I would say we were each other's best friends. So it's that takes a while. You have to go through some things in order to, and usually it's not the good things. You gotta go through the bad things and see that there is a recovery, and that you can recover. Because I remember early on in our relationship when we had fights, I couldn't sleep and feel sick to my
Mm,
stomach. I'd be like, oh, I would call Danny and Keith. I'm like, man, what's going on? I'm walking these streets like and I mean I could hear them laughing at me. I mean, it was with care, but I could hear them laugh because it's like, dude, you do understand this is year one. Call me again in year five, which I did.
ooh-wee,
Call me again in
ooh-wee.
year 7, 8, 9. I mean, but it's life because we understand you bring in two different people into the home with two different backgrounds, two different pathways in order to achieve the same goal. And when you realize that there isn't one way, things get a lot easier. So it took some growth, took some going through some things, raising a young black man, a young black boy turning into a man. And then just friends. So if you've got this, and I don't know how long you and your girl have been together, but from our conversations, sidebar conversations, it sounds like y'all have been that God has given y'all the playbook to understand each other,
Mhm,
to work together to achieve that so many people. I mean, they could have been together longer than they have not been able to
mhm,
achieve. That they always feel like they have to have something reserved. It's almost like you're all in. If you play poker, you're
mhm,
like you push all your chips in and said,
mhm.
"Hey, this is going to work. It's not going to work." But there's no reservation. So to have a conversation like that, even in jest, be funny. I mean, that is phenomenal. You get that gold star today. That you had. I don't know why you're looking so serious. I'd be like, yes. I'd be calling my man. We had this
but, but
conversation.
but that's just it though. A lot of other men, that some men I've talked to or whatnot, they would be offended. They would be offended that and it goes back to some other things, insecurities or even homophobia or whatnot. But they would be offended that that happened. Like I'm a man. I ain't no girl. It's just that moniker of sometimes us as men we can't turn certain things off. You know what I mean? And look at the bigger picture. So a
Yeah,
lot of men would be offended.
it requires looking at the bigger picture. If you see yourself first in a situation, then yes, you're gonna be offended by that. But if you, as you guys have presented, if you look at the deeper meaning to why that happened, a lot of times, most times, it is that is it. The comfort level, the freeness. I can't tell you at home. Well, it happened at home and because of the line of work, it happened at work when a lot of my female clients in particular get really comfortable. It has happened, and they catch themselves. I'm sorry, Mr. Jones. I called you. My bad. Like again, they correct themselves, but I also have learned that
Hmm.
it is a sign that they are truly comfortable, and that most women are used to talking to their female friends about some of this foolishness. Like they really get intimate with
Mhm.
their, have with their female friends. So when they in the zone, they used to say, "And girl, guess what?" And I always, oh my goodness, like oh my goodness, and I'm trying to think of one particular line that was because it was hilarious, but it happens. My point is that it does happen, and again, they a lot of times they'll catch themselves and they feel bad for doing it, but
Mhm.
getting in the habit, as most people get in the habit, or I'll speak with as most women get in the habit of communicating with us, and we learn to listen effectively, it, we all adapt.
Mhm.
It's a badge
You
of
know,
honor.
on right. On the flip side of that, it had me thinking, how do I show, not show, but how am I, or do I show that I'm comfortable with my woman? Because I am, but do I show it? Because just like the same sense of a lot of men, oh, I love my woman, but then how do you show it? So I want to question that to you guys. How is it that you guys show that you're comfortable with your woman? And then I think it's unique for each particular person too.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say like I see you, Bryant. For me, it's being vulnerable is not something most men are used to. And so anytime I'm telling you something that can cause you to see me in less than perfect light, to me that's the
Hmm.
dead giveaway, because we're usually very um, we're going to preserve our ego and or the perception of it
Mm.
um, at all costs, because we need to be esteemed, and especially when you're in a situation where, how do I say this, if respect has been compromised in any way, it makes it's like the kryptonite for vulnerability, because it prevents us from thinking that it's safe space to come and reveal these areas where I might not be as confident as I'd like to be, or that you would need me to be. And so I don't know. For me, it's vulnerability. That's
Mm.
how I know that. All right, it's the proverbial equivalent of the girl. If she gets that part of me, then that's when I know that she's kind of transcended the barriers that would normally exist because of our fragile um, ego. My thought.
All right, so I'm gonna have to ask, like, for those women that watch, because we do have women that watch this, like, what is an example of vulnerability? Because if we are 9 times, or I would even say 11 times out of 10, strong, masculine, just we we can't show weakness. We may be thinking that we're showing weakness, but to them it might be a regular day. So what is give a scenario on what's vulnerability, a vulnerable moment in a man, so that our female listeners can be like, oh, okay, he's being vulnerable. Is it when we get defensive? When we're trying to defend a point and maybe we're raising our voice? Is that a
Yeah,
vulnerable moment?
I would say admitting fault is
Hmm.
one.
Hmm.
Um,
Don't we do that all the time?
admitting it.
Yeah, that's what I say. We say I'm sorry if we don't.
Don't
If we're
do
not
it all
sorry,
the
man, I'm
time.
gonna get in trouble today.
Yeah, it can be admitting
No.
ignorance. or something that would
Mm,
denote the perception of weakness.
Yeah, I was gonna say anything that falls under
mhm,
that category. But those things definitely, I think for a lot of men, like the reason we don't like to ask for directions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The perception of
mhm.
weakness or incompetence. That's what it
Competence.
is.
That's what I was
The
looking for.
perception of weakness or incompetence is just like, yeah, nah, I got it. I got it. No, 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 I got it. Like blank man,
I took
I
care of
got it.
that.
Oh, I got it.
So
To be able to admit to somebody who you desperately want to hold you in high esteem that, yo, I don't got it. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like, yo,
Mm,
I don't know what's wrong with me.
but
So what's that
are
fine
mhm,
we
line
are
between
we
mhm.
really
vulnerability
able,
and weakness?
are most men really able to do that?
No,
To
No,
that's why I'm saying like that's the telltale sign for me that okay, yeah, she has come into the holy of holies
yeah.
because we don't do that.
no, we weren't taught. We weren't taught to
But
do that.
even
Even if we
yeah.
do
I was just about
it,
to say that. Take that even further. Yeah,
it's a safe place.
Say that again, Keith.
I said,
right.
even if we are taught it, is it safe for most? Because well, I'll answer. I mean, it's not safe for most men
Mm.
because there are. I mean, again, because I listened to it. There are a lot of
Mhm,
women who have been taught what to do with that, and they mishandle it, and
mhm,
it becomes abusive.
mhm.
And well, you guys,
Amen.
Like I want to say, Keith, it's a safe space until we put this on the internet.
no, it becomes it can become a very it could be the recipe for a very toxic relationship by omitting faults to people who are not
Yeah.
prepared or who don't know what to do with or who are not like you said you got to go to the most holies of holies back in the old testament. You had to wash and you had to be ready, you had to prepare for that. There's some women who, again, I could tell you my flaws, and you in this day and age they go and post it on social media. Guess what my husband said he does, or he said his
Yep.
weakness. Like, the whole world now knows his kryptonite. So
Mhm,
uh,
mhm,
we're already
mhm,
reluctant to open up. But when we've been burned, oh my gosh, it makes it
mhm.
like a
And
That
jello.
part.
one of the most,
That.
I was go ahead, Steve.
Oh no, no, you're good. You're good.
Now I was gonna say one of the most common ways that happens is when we in a disagreement or an argument, and they go and they reach back. You know they experts at reaching back. They will go and grab
Big time.
1980
Mhm,
or whatever that thing
mhm.
was that you revealed in
And they
that
Rolodex.
vulnerability,
Yep.
and then throw it in your face. And it's just
Yeah.
like, yo, that's
Mm,
flag on the play.
Flag on
And
the
then
play.
they wonder why we don't open up.
I
They
thought you
wonder
forgave
why,
me.
yeah, it's just like,
mhm.
yeah, it's not safe to. And
Yep.
even when they try to make those repair attempts, it has to be consistent effort over time. A woman has to. This is where a woman needs to exercise self control. Men,
Oh,
we have like a physical power,
Yeah, that's our thing.
Mhm.
and we have to show restraint because when we're upset, we default to the physical use of our capabilities. All right. And
Mhm.
so a
Mhm.
woman is in need in the same way of showing restraint with stewarding that man's vulnerability if she expects to have a relationship
Mhm.
with him that is characterized by true
Exactly.
intimacy, which is built upon vulnerability.
Mm. Yep. Yep.
okay.
And
How?
see, this is and uh-oh. Is there a delay? There's not a delay in. Am I good?
Nah, now you're
Okay.
good.
Now you go.
Okay. Um. And I was just going to say sometimes even that vulnerability comes with a history of past traumas that could be taken either way. But I know even just personally for me being vulnerable is including you in things that I like to do, because in the past when I it blew up in my face, or it was just this particular person just wreaked havoc on everything that I like to do. So knowing that, it's like, okay, me being vulnerable now is including you in my life, knowing the possibilities of what can happen, knowing the possibilities that you can tear this up, or knowing the possibilities that you can ruin this event for me. For a while, I didn't travel international because I was scared about what would if we get locked up abroad because of this particular person's actions. So at that point, I just didn't. So me even just traveling and wanting to travel, that's me being involved because of the historical trauma that I went through before.
All right.
See, this thing ain't letting Steve be vulnerable. It's trying to keep you strong. That's what StreamYard does. Plug the StreamYard. Okay.
Mm,
So given what we've said, because we don't have any women here, so we can't tell them what they need to do. But as men, what do we need to do in order to either recognize that, okay, this may be the reaction that we're getting, but you still don't stop trying to be vulnerable or inclusive, or these are the warning signs that say, okay, this is when you need to stop, because if you go any further, as we talked about letting someone in the most holies of holy, one of the things they had was they also had a rope tied to priest had a rope tied to his ankle, because if he wasn't right, he could be struck down and you had to pull him out. So,
Exactly.
what is that safety rope? What is that? So what do we have? What tangible steps, tangible nuggets that's out there that we can tell young men, older men who haven't been in a position where they can see that vulnerability is a good thing for the collective of the home or the relationship. What's there?
I'll say step one is first being vulnerable and honest with God and yourself, to even identify
mm,
what are these flaws, what are these things that I need to improve in my life. A lot of times we as guys, we don't even want to open that. We know a little bit, but we might not. We don't want to. We don't want to open it up. We don't want to cut it open and investigate what's inside, because we know we're not going to like what we see. So there are people with various addictions and or various struggles that they have, and they don't want to. They tiptoe around it. They know they got to do something about it, but they really don't take the effort of going, in some cases, to therapy, or talking to some of their family or friends about family history, or genetic the genetics, or family curses, just whatever it may be, just going inside and figure out
mm-hmm,
what is this, why is it here, and what do I need to do to get rid of it. So step one, figure yourself out, because you can't explain it to her if you don't know.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right, right. And I think that's extremely important. Not only just figuring yourself out, um, looking back at how you even grew up, even just thinking about what we're talking about right now. Hey, I had to even think about it. I don't think as a kid I ever went to my mother and say, "Hey, mom, I messed up," as far as not getting caught first. But that, we weren't taught to just go and just say, "Hey, I messed up," or "Hey, I feel a certain way." We weren't really taught that. And I think that spills over to us as adults, especially men, to where we don't usually, and it goes back to kind of what we were talking about last episode. Us as men, especially black men, we don't really cry for help. You know what I mean? We don't ever just say, "Hey, I," or "Hey, I messed up," or "I'm feeling a certain way." So even just looking at some of the things that you used to do historically, and it is just that simple. If you want to do better, hey, do the opposite of what you used to do. If you want a different change, or you want a different outcome, the simple part is do the opposite. If you don't, like, in a relationship, if you don't want to argue with somebody and you find yourself just talking all the time, then shut up. That's the opposite of talking too much. Shut up.
Just shut up.
Sometimes it's just that simple. Do the opposite. Just hush. Just hush. And I think the Bible speaks to that. Was it slow to speak, swift to hear, something like that? I know I'm probably getting that messed up, but
Quick to
yeah,
listen, slow to
just
speak.
looking at things in that perspective sometimes too.
Yeah, we got
There
two
we go.
ears. No.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things I heard
Mm,
was about kind of a safe space. How how do you
mhm,
create a judge-free zone in order to have that safe space? Because if I think about it, my situation is different. Again, we've been together for a long time, so we've had ups, downs, and I believe in having ups and downs builds trust. It can build a safe space because you have
mhm,
what is it? Shared I don't want to say shared trauma, but it's almost like when we were talking about school, the school we went to, we were trauma bonding. Maybe I think that's what it is.
Is that what
Trauma.
marriage is though? Like Sinbad was even talking about how he
We.
got married to the same. Is like that. I know you're crazy. You know, is marriage God's way of trauma bonding two individuals together?
I mean, now because of sin, yes.
Mm,
But think about it, and you really can't trust someone until you know how they act in perilous times, in times where it's not smooth, when the waters are rough. You look at the person next door, like, are you a sink or swim? Are you fight or flight? And
mm,
I always say, hey, the
mhm,
according to alphabetical order, that I becomes before L. So we fighting before we flying, flying away. And you
mhm,
look at that only happens when um you've experienced bad times. Like I say, I never know I'm truly happy unless I've experienced sadness. Um, But how do you
mhm,
create that
mhm,
that safe space, that judge-free space? And as men, I mean, we work with accountability. We work with respect. One of our terms is my bad. Once you say my bad and it like erases the slate, it's like that old little dollar store little drawing pad. My bad. Shh. Come back now. You might see little glimpses, but you're like, okay. If you do it too much, then we know in that area we don't rock with you. But in a relationship, you don't
mhm,
always have that ability to compartmentalize things. So how do you create that safe space? Or and then the converse is, how do you recognize that the space isn't safe and it's time to vacate? Because we got to be real. I'm not a proponent for divorce, but if thing or breaking up, but if these things happen, what's the most amicable way or least painful way of doing that? So we got to talk about the pluses and the minuses. So again, judge free zone, how do you make it? And then how do you recognize that if it's not going to be a free zone, how do you protect yourself or I guess get out?
mhm,
It might be something we need to chew on. Do we need to
mhm,
need to pivot? Because I know I dropped a hammer there.
I mean, naturally, we know some of the signs of just like I said, anything that is intimate or personal or anything that's sacred not being held as such. And when I say that, again, the we've seen it where things end up on social media or like the her whole family knows everything
Yeah.
about things that typically would have or should have stayed in house or the mailman and sometimes it's not done intentionally, and this is where, like you said, sometimes it's a learning process for us all because um there are times where people I've seen dynamics where people are just looking to understand certain things, so raise it, they'll raise certain personal conversations with a sibling or a parent asking for clarity. I've seen a woman ask her dad about something involving ED. Now, naturally, yeah, or erectile dysfunction. So,
We knew what
um,
it meant.
yeah. So just for the sake of the listeners, so the
Just-
so so naturally, yes, he was disappointed that she went to talk to people about what he was going through, but where was the line? I guess
Did
as
she?
she
But did she do it out of like maliciousness, just like gossiping,
no,
talking, or
she
was she
just
like
wanted
really trying to get help of like how to solve this
trying
problem?
to get help, trying to
It
understand.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, but she was trying to understand.
It matters.
She was trying to understand, how can I help my husband because I've never experienced this. I'm not going through menopause yet. And she's like, so some of these things, and then there was so much to this that she didn't understand, because I told her it's not just physical, it's psychological. It's like there's so many components wrapped around this, and
Mhm.
her going to her dad to ask questions, because again, her dad, she had a relationship where she could talk to her dad about these things, and he was disappointed. I mean, when the husband found out, he did feel betrayed, because this wasn't something that he wanted to
Betrayed.
be shared. Like,
He
she
didn't want
could
his
have.
father-in-law to know.
What's that?
He didn't want his father-in-law to know. He knew that
Anyone,
knocked him down a
I
peg.
mean, who do you really want to know that?
he didn't want
Like
me to.
who? Like where?
Right.
When? In what
Neurologist?
universe do you want that
Where
to get
he was
out to anybody?
coming. He didn't want me to know. So I'm like, yo, I can't help y'all if we don't talk about these things. But helping him understand that she does need to do her research. Now, she doesn't have to throw you under. I mean, again, she doesn't have to make you feel like you've been thrown under the bus to do it. But at the same time, I don't. People aren't dumb. If she comes to her dad asking, or comes to various people asking questions, people will assume anyway, oh, she must be going through, or or they're gonna ask her, why are you asking? And she might tell them, just trying to figure things out for my marriage. But my point is, it wasn't done maliciously. It was done because she's really trying to figure out how to help her husband. But he
Right.
didn't see it
Okay.
that way. He was
That's
he was
They're not
disappointed.
going to see
He
that.
shared that information.
You go to Thanksgiving and your
but see
father-in-law
that
eating corn.
but that's a key component is intent. What is the intent? If my intent is to help you, which ultimately helps us, at a certain point in time, we got to kind of look at that picture as husband and wife. We are. I always tell my clients, there's the twins that you really have to afford each other, the twins of grace and patience, and they go hand in hand. You have to give your space your spouse um the utmost patience and the utmost grace that you would never give anybody else. So you have to be able to, those feelings and that emotion that you would have for somebody off the street, you got to dial that back for your spouse. To say, okay, you know what? I'm going to think objectively about this. What was your intent? Was you gossiping? Was you really just trying to make fun? Was you just trying to vent to people like, I'm sick of this and him and his ED and all this, versus I'm really trying to get us to get some help here. You know what I mean? So sometimes we have to dial it back as people that are in relationships to really understand what is the intent, because I think that now it's not more or less about you did this to me. It's about I'm embarrassed. And as human beings, when we get embarrassed, we do some stupid things. We do some
Yeah.
stupid things, and we have those feelings and those emotions just come out because we're embarrassed about something. So again, sometimes even look at and as men, we have to. I mean, it never happened to me knocking on all the wood in the house, speak. But you have to, at a certain point in time, us as men, we got to deal with reality sometimes too. We're human beings. Things
True.
happen. I didn't want to cut my hair. Guess what? The Lord said, "Hey, you need to cut your hair, or it's gonna be back here." Sometimes it is what it is. You just you deal with life, and again, that's where the spiritual aspect of it is. You just say sometimes you gotta go to God for things, but I think it's more or less dealing with that embarrassment, not really what you did, but again, being able to look in the intent of our spouse is going to be very key in this too, to get out of our own feelings.
I'm gonna chime in and say it's all about the rules of engagement, because if you as a couple have
Hmm.
clear rules in terms of, all right, babe, you mind if I talk to so and so about such and such? Um, as opposed to just finding out that something that was private, something that was personal, something that was whatever the rules of engagement are. So, like if it's for finances, if there was some couples, the only reason I picked this area is because a lot of people have rules around that. Okay, if it's an amount over this, then we need to talk to each other. And
Hmm.
so it's a rule, it's a boundary, it's something that's predetermined, that is collaboratively put in place so that there's no confusion. The problem comes when we have the expectations that it's not going to get places. You know, most of our problems in romantic relationships and in life is really surrounding these unmet or mismanaged expectations. And so if the expectation was that you were going to hold on to this and that it wasn't going to get out to my mama, get out to my sister, get out to your best friend, get out to whomever, like what are the rules? And so if you're establishing that up front, you minimize the possibilities for confusion. Um, and you can preemptively say, like in the case of the financial example, hey, yo, babe, I got this purchase that's over the amount. Would you mind if we move forward on it, or do you have questions, comments? Whatever is predetermined just minimizes the confusion, keeps the relationship strong, and manages those expectations. I don't know if that was a good way of putting it, but I think that oftentimes we get in a pickle when we expected something and we got something else.
Yeah, everything goes back to communication.
So
Didn't communicate those expectations. But just remember, rules are like donuts; they have holes, and some of us will exploit those holes, those nuances in rules. There's always a a gray area. So how do you change your mindset? Because again, as men, we speak in the language of respect and accountability, and that's a singular mindset. That is a singular, direct, linear mindset. But then in relationships, it's about together, collective, which invokes grace. So how do you how do you change that mindset? What is an acceptable time? And I know you want to say it varies if if everyone is different, but is 1 year too long to hold that singular mindset? Is 2 years too long? Like, what is that period where in your different professions and different areas of life that you've seen, that a relationship won't grow if this mindset is still the dominant mindset? You know, I'm saying it's a bad mindset. I'm saying that, in respect is very singular. If you disrespect me, I can't trust you. I can't trust you. I can't rock with you. I can't do all these things. I'm going to withhold. But in relationship, there has to be grace. So as for men, how do we make that shift? Are there any steps? Is it like, what is it? I keep coming up with these silent pausing questions. Give y'all a question list, but y'all bring it out of me. Y'all have me thinking like,
You got
what is
you got
acceptable?
a lot of you. There's pieces. There's different pieces, and they all get their own answers.
This is why
There-
someone hates. This is why someone hates Keith and I, because we ask these type of questions. Well, what is?
Can we say his name? I'm sorry.
No, we're not giving him any credit today. He gets no credit.
but
No,
I don't
but
know.
like,
Again, with us men, we have we talked about it before. This ego, and a lot of times it stops us from getting help, and we tell them you can't help me either. So I can't put a time frame on it because it again, going back to what I said before, until we do the homework for ourselves and realize we're the one messing up the game. We're messing up the flow of the game. It's easy when we're calling everybody else out, and we seeing how everything could be better if everybody else would just do this. But when it's us, it's we have a hard time admitting it at first, and so we we can delay the process. To answer your question why there's no timetable, we can delay the process of us getting into that sacred space of trust, because we won't allow ourselves to trust from the beginning. So there is no time frame. It really it varies for everyone. It once you once you're able to identify what your issue is, you can go, and we test. And most of us as human beings, we test out slowly. We may not go with the big bomb. We might go with a little firecracker, you know. Yeah, and we see what she does with that, and then we'll go with a little M90 and see what she does with that. Now we gonna move to the pack of dynamite. This is my struggle. This is what I have issues with, or this is what I don't like. And um, that really depends on our willingness to be vulnerable and trust them. And I've seen it where people just don't
Mhm,
have that. It does blow up in their face. She'll light that joint right in your hand,
mhm,
blow your whole self up.
mhm, mhm.
Right. So, so no, you. So that's why I was saying there is no. I would love to say there was a timetable of progression, but like with every relationship is different. So progression is
Mhm,
different.
So
Um,
if I'm starting out in a
mhm.
relationship, it's been a year and there's been no vulnerable moment or really a trusting or M80 situation. Does that mean that I've not given it the the true test, or that I've not made myself
No,
vulnerable enough to see if it works? Or is that just a, hey, you
you,
know, in a year something should happen? You know.
but you know what? I think in due time, God got a purpose for everything. It'll happen. Trust and believe. It it'll happen more than once. It will definitely happen, and then that's when it's that. Let's sit back and look and evaluate what we mean to each other, or what this means to me. But like Keith said, I don't think there is a set time, but just know it's going to happen, whether it be year one or year 10. It's going
it
to
should.
happen.
10
It's
You
years.
know, and I always and yeah, it's going to happen. It's but again, but and even the severity of it. But I always tell couples, there's three levels to conflict, per se. We have debate or whatnot that that's going to happen, or disagreements. I'm sorry, we have disagreements. That's definitely going to happen all the time. Sometimes debates. I mean, those disagreements can turn into arguments. We don't want those to happen, but sometimes it does still happen. Those
They're gonna.
arguments can then turn into fights. Those arguments can turn into fights, and the fights is what we don't want to have. So when we're looking at just the degree of severity when we're talking about conflict, just understand it's going to happen. Whether it be year one or year 10. Some people are very real reserved until guess what? We get to year 6 where we're saying, "Girl," then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, okay, all right, we here now. We here." So now the work begins. But again, it's dependent on the person as well as the situation too. But there's really no set time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to me, it goes back to what I was saying about like expectation. Because if you have rules of engagement, like Steve was saying, the disagreements, arguments, fights, you've got rules to fight by. Like there's no sport that doesn't have rules. All right, the rules are there to protect people. The rules are there to make sure it's fair. The rules are there for a number of different reasons, a degree of predictability, so that you can hone in on your skills and you know what's below the belt, you know what's out of bounds. And so if you're able to manage that, I think that you can mitigate when you are going to have those escalated situations where you go from disagreements to arguments to fights, because you're operating according to the rules, or at least you can acknowledge when somebody stepped out of bounds.
That part.
And you've
'Cause
previously determined
Mm-hmm.
before emotions
Yeah.
are heightened that,
I,
all right, this is out of bounds. We both agree this is out of bounds. All right, this is out of bounds when we're good. And so when we're not good and it happens, at least we can go back to what we rationally constructed before we were in a
Mm-hmm.
heightened emotional state, to be able to say, hey, that's out of bounds. You're right. It is out of
Mm-hmm.
bounds. We
Mm-hmm.
agreed. And so that can prevent a lot
Mm-hmm.
of things going south.
yeah.
It's managing expectations
Yeah.
proactively instead of reactively, because far
That
too
part.
often
That part.
when we're not given the skills by example, and we grow up, we're just throwing darts at a moving target with a blindfold on in the dark, and we end up just trying to do the best that we can. We have no expectations, so we're aiming at nothing, and we hit it every time, and we wonder why our relationships aren't doing good. This is why it's so important for, I guess, especially Black people to get into some counseling, get into some therapy, to have somebody to help you develop rules of engagement,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to identify, okay, this is out of bounds. Because when you can manage those expectations, you can prevent a lot of mess from hitting the fan.
Okay.
Mm. And that's so funny that's what you call it, rules of engagement. Because I always talk to my clients and I say, hey, we got to develop our rules of engagement. They're like, what, are we going to war or something like that? And I say, yeah, it can
Yes,
you know, it can feel like
yes.
that. You know, I
No,
always
it
and
is straight war. It's a straight war with these couples out.
hmm
It is.
and
It is.
I tell them that, you know, it's about you know, sometimes I'll tell them that, hey, you know what, you have to develop these particular keys in order to know what's going to work for you guys. Because again, you know, I even have a thing where I say, hey, I tell them, I make them write like 4 top 10 lists, right? What are the top 10 triggers for you? What do you think are the triggers for them? And have them both do it, so that way now and I said, you know, work on it separately, because you may not even know what your triggers are, but your spouse do. So, you know, you're learning each other. And then also, hey, when we do get to the point to where we see that it's about to go field, what are our rules of engagement with that? Hey, you know what? I need to take a drive, or I need to take a walk, or I need to, you know, and we have to agree that, hey, me taking a drive, that I'm going to come back and I'm not abandoning you or the conversation.
That part.
But we have to agree to these rules of engagement. Or even when we are arguing, hey, I always make my couples do this. There has to be a timeline: 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, or a year. What time frame do you want to have to where you cannot go back and bring something out of the past? So if you
This
guys
right
agree
here,
on 30
we
days,
gotta have a whole keep going. This part right here. Preach,
I was gonna
Steve.
ask
Preach
that.
Sunday
if you
morning.
agree,
Preach.
if you
Preach.
agree on 1 year, we can't reach back into the past. If it happened 364 days, guess what? It's fair game. But tomorrow, keep it out your mouth. That
Woo!
and that a lot of couples struggle with that. They struggle.
Yes,
Oh, they struggle. They
yes, they do.
struggle.
They will pick up that bone and they will hold on to it and shake it, shake it, shake it. And
See,
I'm like, so
Deacon
so
Steve
when
has
did that,
spoken. He
when did
came
that
with it.
happen? Right, 7 years ago.
What?
So
Hmm?
did she say sorry? So did y'all move on? So why we like? So what is
Exactly.
the significance of like? Why are we still holding on
Exactly.
to it? But whenever they get into an argument, it becomes the excuse. It becomes a catalyst. Because this was where
Hmm.
I was going to go back to say, what happens when people don't? You know the rules of engagement, but my emotions tell me I don't have to follow these rules, and I'm gonna bring up everything you've ever done,
Exactly.
and now you are
Yep.
now I'm no longer a safe place for you because I see now
Hmm.
that this is what you do when you get angry, and
Hmm.
But
like
see, again,
at
for
that
me,
That
point.
that's why I always put that in. There has to be some time. We cannot. We have I make them write down their commandments for a marriage. You know, you got to start building on your laws, your commandments as a marriage, of what you're going to do, and that's always number 1 or 2. Hey, thou shalt not go back 1 year and bring you something from the past, or thou shalt not go back 60 days, or whatever it may be that y'all agree to. But y'all got to look back at this and say, hey, you know, if the other person is doing it, hey, guess what? You going back against what we said we were going to do, and the other person has to be like, has to that constructive criticism. That's the only way it's going to work. But that's a bad one. That people, again, they'll bring up stuff that happened. I mean, I've had couples that have gone college and have been married 40 years, and things have been brought up about things that happened in college 40 years ago. It's like, you really want to have this argument? And we as men, now hold on, let me say this. We as men have a very time with this too. When we feel like we've been hurt, we feel like our woman has talked to a man, and you know, we feel just really what is it, this demasculated or whatnot.
You
Oh my
escalate.
God, we will reach back 100 years and say, hey, I remember when you was an embryo and you talked to this other sperm that was out there before I got there. All those things we will do that. And it's like, you really want to have this argument? You really want to go there? Because all it's gonna do is hurt y'all.
but
Because
isn't fr-
if she lose, and it's like it's a competition. And I
Yeah.
always had to tell people, well, tell me, if she loses, guess what? You lose too,
You
because
lose too.
y'all are
Same thing.
So
Yeah.
isn't forgiveness the
Same
language
team.
of respect and accountability, and grace the language of like love, emotion? Because if you're reaching back,
Mhm.
while you may have verbally forgiven, emotionally you haven't. So if people keep reaching
But see,
back,
there's a different, but there's different languages to forgiveness too.
Yeah,
There's different
definitely.
languages to that. There's but the dude that made that wrote
yeah,
the love
five,
languages. He has
five
another
languages,
book
yeah,
that a lot
forgiveness.
of people the five apology languages or something like that too.
Yeah,
So people don't really read that one. We want to, but we don't want to
yeah.
learn about what we need to do in order to repair and to say I'm sorry. What works best for
Let's be
that other
honest.
person? We don't
What if
want to
we're
do
not
that work.
sorry?
We want to
What
get
if
it.
we're not sorry? What if we
Oh,
genuinely
that's
are
another
not
story.
sorry and just be like, my bad, just to get through to the
Mm.
next moment? And that's another conversation. So
This your
we're gonna
spouse?
have to bring up the marriage
This your
commandments.
spouse
That's
though?
gonna
This
be
your
led
spouse?
by Steve.
This your
Marriage
spouse?
commandments led by Steve. Yeah, I understand. And that's that mindset. We're gonna have to have one on that mindset. You are no longer an individual. It's no longer self-preservation.
Exactly.
It's the preservation of your relationship. And that means you gotta let some stuff go. As
Oh,
men,
Brother,
it's
brother, I'm telling you, man, I'm telling you, I've heard stories where
man.
men have told me, she's not my partner, huh? That's not a partner. She's not my partner. That's not my partner. That's my wife. I'm like, and I'm flabbergasted because sometimes it's like at that point, your mind can't do couples therapy. We have to work on you and your mindset at this point because this is never going to work when your mindset is on that we're not partners. This is your teammate. And my thing is now when she goes play for another team, now we have a problem.
well, she got traded.
Man,
Oh, now you want to be team. Now you want to be teammates.
yeah. Now she put
hmm
in her trade request. Like I hear it all the
hmm
time. All the time. She don't want to be with me no more. Like when you said she wasn't yours, so
All right. hmm
be
Man,
careful with
I was just being trying to be strong. That's how I was taught. I was taught that's how you be strong. Show no emotion.
You're gonna be
treated
strong.
like a
You're gonna be
lady.
strong and no emotions by yourself.
Yeah.
hmm
Hey, we gotta just go out into the wilderness. No, go out into the desert. Find that one piano that's still out there from from Boys to Men, and sing her a song. But yeah, it's interesting how we as men are quick to point out, as we've heard today, point out other flaws, other faults. But I mean, we are the captains of this relationship. If something's not going right, we got to look at ourselves and say, "And what are we doing wrong?" Or, and it may not be what am I doing wrong? What can I do better? Because what
There you
I've been doing is not working out. So, fellas, we've been on here. It's almost an hour. Any parting words or final thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I'll just jump in
A
and
quick
just
quick
say,
question.
go ahead.
Oh no, just a quick question. We don't have no time for overtime. Just like a couple of minutes. Do we have time, or I'm not going to church today? So
Oh, dang. I mean, I'm free, but I don't know about the rest.
about
You
about
talking
10 minutes, because
after our
because
conversation?
y'all brought up. I'm talking about on this
Okay,
platform right
hey,
here,
I ain't
because
I
y'all
tripping.
think we
brought
need a
something to
whole
my
new. I think
attention.
we need a whole new
That,
one, bro. I think that what we started, like, I don't think we could do it in 10 minutes because when you started preaching, I was like, yeah, we need a whole series on that right there.
Well, I'm writing
That's
down.
just
Got my
me.
yeah,
sticky notes.
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
writing
So
oh
down
no,
marriage
no.
commandments.
fire up another
This
one.
on something that y'all. No, this on something that y'all put in the chat, and it's been bothering me ever since. And it's just what's wrong with our people? I'm tired. I'm tired. I know I joke and I say something about the purge and all those things, but there needs to be a thinning of the herd. This is y'all presented that whole what was the bad thing bad something bad the baddies of Detroit or something like that, and it was the way
Oh,
the way
that
they was
video.
fighting at the thing.
I mean, only somebody
Okay,
who's
yeah, you're right.
experienced
We need a whole
life
new thing
would
because
probably say it. So.
uh,
Yeah, I
I'm
think that
I'm I'm
it's
I'm flabbergasted, but yeah, it need a whole new thing. Yeah,
it's always going
it's
to be crazy stuff that's out there, and the media is going to
why
show
we
the
got to
most.
be the one to do it though. Why
Well,
why it got to be us?
because we're attention seekers. We profit from ratchetness. Let's be honest.
We do. That's the only way that we know how to garner
It's
attention.
not fair.
Do we profit?
Consistently.
It's not fair.
We get
It's not
exposure
fair.
ratchetness, but I don't think we profit a dime. We don't profit anything from ratchetness. We get exposed. We get viewed a certain way. We continue.
Well, I mean,
to
if you're
utilize
posting it
ourselves.
on YouTube where you can get some ad dollars,
But we as a community,
But then,
no, individuals maybe, but we as a community, we lose. We lose when we get out there and we act like that. We do. It's sad.
and then our kids see this, and our kids see this and think that that's the way that we're supposed to act. And then when they get in trouble at school or they go off to college and they get kicked out, it's like, well, this is what our people do. It's what we do. It's
No,
just I feel a certain way about it. I feel a certain way.
I asked a question. Now that you bring that up, because I said I was talking to my daughter in middle school, and I was talking about the fights that happen at school, and I said, "Is the Asian kids? No, not really. Maybe one fight." I said, "Is it the Filipino kids?" Like I went, and then I said, "Is the white kids?" She was like, "Well, they have some, and there's a." She's like, "But when they blow up, they blow up." like. But I was like, "But who fights every day?" And then she was like, "I was like, yeah." I was like, and so for some reason, we have made it socially acceptable to be either disruptive or violent every day. Y'all don't see that as a problem
Every day.
and it's normal. It's like
we
if
haven't
something
been taught how to communicate with our words. Number one, nobody showed us that, and so we think that if somebody disrespects us, somebody looks at us the weird way, there's only one thing to do: try to blow their head off. We don't have emotional intelligence. We haven't exercised in the gymnasium of communication.
we are reactionary people.
Yeah, and so it's a whole bunch of stuff. The media, we could point fingers all day and all night. I think that it's definitely a broad conversation that warrants some exploration. But it's always going to be, as long as there's a media, there's going to be people putting things out there that is extreme, absurd, and because that's what the media does. For every one of those, though, there's some people that's doing some really good stuff. And I want to encourage every one of us to make ourselves a committee of one, and just try to create an environment where something positive is going on. Everything except Almighty God can improve, and so if we focus on that, then we're getting just a little bit better, 1% better every day,
and that's progress. Well, I'll say, going back to originally what Steve had said in that video, I mean, and even in the chat, I told you, I mean, the limited amount of resources you had, I probably said was maybe 1,000 women probably fighting for 10 to 20 slots. And when resources are low and demand is high, people tend to go to their primal being, forget using logic, saying, hey, somebody might be recording me. Why am I here? This doesn't put me in a good light. I am without. I need this. I want it more than you. I need it more than you. It's a status symbol, maybe an opportunity to come up, get recognized, noticed. Now, it may not be for anything positive, but still getting noticed, recognized that we're going to see that as long as poverty and it's crazy. So I'm not surprised. I hopefully will try to shield my son from that he won't go after someone in that in that group.
The ratchet ones, those are the fun ones, man.
Hey, that was enough. Hey, I thought about that. Was almost one of my questions
today.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. You ain't see all the
y'all are nice. I'm in the words of Dr. Umar, some of these that's not gonna make it. They just can't make it. They just can't make it. This is See, y'all nice. I'll say it. This is unacceptable. This does not need to happen. They got to go.
He
They
ready
got to
for
go. This is
he
un.
ready
This is
Thanos.
un. This is because here's the thing. Jewish people, somebody Jewish. If this was the Jewish people, guess what? Somebody would have came up and said, "Oh, they have to go. This is unacceptable. We can't have this going on. They will not represent us like this. Why are we the only ones that we this BS?"
Well,
They,
I
I
don't
think I
want to
read
look.
something else too that somebody was twerking. What's her name? Come on, man.
Twerking
It
where?
was something. It was some event that something was going on, and I think not Cardi B. What's the other girl's name? The one that got shot in the foot.
The stallion lady.
Meg.
Yeah,
Meg,
man.
Yeah, I think she. I guess they
Meg.
did some type of show, or in honor of her or something like that. And they was twerkers. Something happened to where the person that's supposed to be running for president had twerkers on stage.
So that goes back
I'm
to
I'm 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 done.
we
I'm
as
done.
a people. I truly believe the
This
path,
isn't fair.
the journey that we've gone through as a people to be taken from the highest of highs, being kings, queens, I mean, the Mecca, the originator of, I think, the originator of life came out of Africa, with to now be at this point, the true effects of slavery, poverty, so many different mechanisms that were in place in order to keep this our people down has a long lasting effect where you don't remember that your ancestors were a great people because you've been so far taken away from it that stories aren't passed down. That, I mean, all you can remember is the rough stuff, the struggle. And if all you are used to living in a struggle, acting in a struggle, remembering a struggle, you have a struggle mindset. It
But that's
takes
my but is remembering how great your ancestors used to be, does that is that a cause for you to act now decent?
No, I really feel it's a spiritual matter. Honestly, I feel like as
Oh,
it
you
is
think it's
written.
the devil?
No, I think it's spiritual though. But well, yeah. I believe that as it's written, as this world gets to this place, the spirit will not be as accessible to
acceptable.
people. So people don't have the conviction or the I don't want to call it shame or guilt. So I'll call it the conviction of or the understanding of how their actions, because that's what the comforter, the spirit of God, I believe, does. He lets us know when we mess up, like, and why it's bad. And as this world becomes a messed up, corrupt place, as we believe, in the second coming, this world is going to do this, and it's going to only get worse. So I kind of brace myself
Oh,
for.
so
I
you
hate.
say these are demons. These are demons out here
I
doing
ain't
this. This
saying
ain't
they
a
demons.
no, these
They,
they demons.
they can be people can be possessed, and I do believe that demon possession does happen. But I believe that afterwards, again, there are people who still, a lot of them who, again, there are some people who look at themselves later. I talked to a lady who this week who used to be an amateur in the adult entertainment industry. Now, 25 years later, she's looking at, back then she stood on her as those standing now. I stand on business. I was doing what I was doing. Now she's looking at her decisions like, yeah, not such a good idea now. Like, so I'm hoping that
Oh,
in some of those situations with some of them young ladies in that video, tempers were heightened at that moment is fight or flight, like Goodon said earlier. And I chose to fight. But I'm hoping when they got home, or I'm hoping that they sit down and talk to people, and not even about how great we were, how great you are now. Like you're destined for more now. So
And that's what's not being seen. The
so
the
that
remorse will be later.
that's where I like. But the ones who
y'all
don't want to get
y'all think it's
together,
remorse? You think they you think
the
they
ones
sorry?
Yeah, we are
those
just
who don't
feeding
want
into
to
Steve.
get together, I'm you think what happened? A lot of the people who didn't want to get it together in life ended up behind bars, and we saw that too. So if there are some of those who don't want to get it together and they don't want to change, then unfortunately there's a place for them too. But for those who want to change, or may have the ability, because who knows? Like speaking of president, the next president of somebody's committee or church, or they might have been in that room being the main ones throwing hands. So
Hmm.
I don't know, but I do know we at now is sad and scary. It's a sad and scary place.
We do better when we know better, and I think that's the thing is we got to get the message out to say you can do better, and not in
But
a
what if they
not
don't?
You
a
don't you
What,
don't
what if
way.
think they
they
know
know
they
that?
can do better? You don't think they know they can do
Mhm. If you've been in a certain environment for a long period, or maybe your entire life, to be exposed to something different is scary, is hard to adjust.
Because think about all them kids that we saw that never even once, not one time, been out of Detroit. Like that's what they know. These young men that grew up in these gangs in this 5 mile radius or 10 mile radius, and that's what they know. So when they really feel loyal to these gangs because this is all that exists to them. But when you get outside of that and you see that these other places and spaces, what you're looking at first starts to lose its value because there's more to life than this. Why do you think a lot of these guys leave the hood and they come back to visit? They'll drive through, throw a couple of dollars out, and keep
better?
going back to their house in Beverly Hills. So
You don't think God puts intrinsic values in human beings to know what's right or wrong without even having heard of him?
yes, but I also
I'm
believe in
I'm
serpents
just
that
saying this one thing right here. Iniquity is bound in the heart of a child. David was like, in sin did my mother conceive me. So a little kid, I've watched little kid a year old. Anybody teach him how to lie? They automatically, did you eat the cookie? No.
And know he and know he's wrong. And a dog knows he's wrong. This dog,
That's true.
my dog,
You're right.
shit, my,
I
I'm
agree.
a
I
sister.
agree with you
The
on that.
dog doodled on my floor, and he knew the dog don't know Jesus. He don't know God. He knew he was wrong. A dog will know he's wrong. You mean to tell they know y'all being nice? Here we go. Here we go.
Do
They know
you
what
have
they
your
doing.
editing skills? Do you have those ready?
I'm gonna say something too.
is the dog
A dog knows when it's wrong. A dog
is the
knows.
is the dog okay? Did you put him out?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't. Yeah,
Oh, you
and
started great.
that's where relationships comes from because she balances me up.
Steve, put the gun down. He doodled on the floor. He can't
in
be
my
with
in my office, and you know what that dog did? He doodled in my office. I was like, where the dog at? Because we was all sitting down. I said, where the other dog at? He doodled in my office, and he can't. He was just sitting there. He knew he was wrong. Anyways, he went to
That
his
was well
game
said.
without me
Yep.
even asking. So if a dog can do that,
Hold
intrinsically,
on,
we
let me
know we
tell you,
wrong. We
Steve
know
does
we wrong.
believe in people.
Huh?
That's funny.
I need to put that at the bottom. Steve does believe in humanity.
It's just something about us, man. It's just like we yes, we can be great. We can be we have been great. We are great. We can be greater. It's just that the focus and I just see that our kids are getting wind to this, and I'm seeing even just like younger adults now. You know the rate that they're getting killed. Like these new rappers and everything like that. As far as back in the day, people were just mostly rapping about all this stuff. Man, they actually doing everything that they said. They telling on themselves now. At this
Yeah.
point, every
Oh,
single every
how
single
I
song, how I did it.
oh
But it's that mentality of this is what us as a society is deeming to be acceptable. To be acceptable. It's ooh, I just want God to come back. Come on, just come
accepted
on
and
back. Please just come on back. Please. Just come
glorified.
on.
Because
All right.
that's the part. It's not only accepted, it's glorified, but it's going to be. But how do we change the palate? How do we change the taste? Because that's what.
Courage.
Because again, we were the same way well, I remember the elders in our community telling us what they believed to be right. We didn't want that. We rejected that too. We're young and we're gonna find our own way. We don't want to know. We don't want to do things the way you did or have the understanding you have. We want our own understanding. Um, and so the Bible says, "Lean not till I don't understand." But we often
Mm.
try to negate that, um, and we find ourselves jacked up for it. So But each younger generation looks for that. They look for that break off. We look for that way to be independent or to stand out or to show themselves. But it seems like, again, like the Bible records, they're bigger yet weaker. Like they're they're smart and dumb at the same time. It it's amazing.
All right, fellas, we need to wrap this up. I gotta do something for my dad later on today. So, any parting out? Oh, Steve's already given his parting words.
Purge.
Yeah,
You're
but
not giving Steve the mic again? That's
I'm
cold.
not
Purge.
giving. We said 10 minutes.
Purge.
It's been 15.
Purge. Well, no, I'll give you. I'll give you my part of words, and I'll shut up after this. I'll go back to what we talked about before. Um, and again, I definitely want to say this, definitely for couples, and whenever we've been talking about um, being comfortable with people, just even in that self with being comfortable with your spouse or whatnot. Again, patience and grace, being able to afford those to the person that you love, your partner, your spouse, whoever that may be. Do that in the sense of where that person gets that the most patience and grace that you would give anybody else, and that's going to go a long way, especially for people being comfortable with you as well as you being comfortable with them. So
Okay.
I will jump and say next, as stated before, to the men. Uh, in order to create a zone of safety, you must figure out what it is that you are hiding, what it is that you are working on, what it is you want to be better at, so you can go and have meaningful conversations. So, just reminding you to do the homework, to check in, start dating, to figure out what those things are. What are the things you value? Where are the areas you want to see growth in your personal life as well as your relationships, as well as relationship with family, friends, etc. So, this week start doing some digging and to find out what it is that you even feel comfortable sharing. That's it.
All right,
Yeah.
Danny.
Um, everything except Almighty God can be improved. That's just what
mhm.
I said a couple times. Let's focus on just getting 1% better every day. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, focus on what you can do right.
All right, and I'm just gonna say thanks for rocking with us for this past hour and 17 plus minutes. It's been real, and catch you at the next episode. Thanks. Well, it's closing time. We are glad you stayed with us this long. The bill? Oh, we tore that up. For truth and accountability are free. You want to leave a tip? Sure, we take your money, but what's even better is if you share this with someone you know, for there's always room for more at the Iron Table.